of our book series on this channel, and my goal is to try to do it at least once a month. I would love to be able to get through at least one book a month. However, trying to hold myself to it by keeping a goal tracker, and a chapter a day is what's on there. So at minimum, I'd like to do a chapter a day, but we'll see. Just wanted to give you guys a little update on that. So today's review is the book called The Highway by C.J. Box. I picked this book up, it was quite a few years ago, and it was one of the sales that the Indigo was having, and it was really cheap, and I was really into crime novels at the time. I tried to read this one after a series of crime novels, and I really couldn't get into it. So I put it away, and I said I'd try it again later. This was later. I got into it, and I did feel as though it was a little bit better than when I started it the last time. However, there is still a lot of it that I found difficult to get through. Not only was it really slow-paced in some places and really fast-paced in others, but there's a lot of triggers in this book that I want to give note to. So I'll read you the synopsis and we'll go from there. So when two sisters set out across a remote stretch of Montana road to visit their friend, little did they know it will be the last time anyone might ever hear from them. The girls and their car simply vanish. Former police investigator Cody Hoyt has just lost his job and fallen off the wagon after a long stretch of sobriety. Convinced by his former rookie partner Cassie Duell to conduct a search, he begins the drive south to the girls' last known location. As Cody makes his way to the lonely stretch of Montana highway where they went missing, Cassie discovers that Gracie and Danielle Sullivan aren't the first girls who've disappeared there. This majestic landscape is the hunting ground for a killer whose viciousness is outmatched only by his intelligence, and he might not be working alone. Time is running out for Gracie and Danielle. Can Cassie overcome her fears and use her innate skills to find the sisters? Can Cody battle his own demons and stop this killer before another victim vanishes on the highway? So basically, this book kind of has 3 or 4 different, actually let me see, there's the sisters, there's Cody, there's Cassie, there's Cody's son, and there's the killers. So there's about 5 different aspects that this book takes place in. The sisters, it's okay. Cody and Cassie's I find are very, very boring. They're very dry. Typically I like looking at things from an investigator point of view, but I found that a lot of what was written in their sections were really slow paced. It just didn't really pick it up at all. The killers I found were really good, however, their sections were the most triggering. There is talk of sexual assault. There is talk of obviously murder. And in this book, it's pretty descriptive, and what isn't descriptive is kind of left up to the mind to manipulate it however you want. And I find that is almost worse than having a description, because typically your mind goes to the absolute worst situation. So I did find certain sections of this book were really hard to read. There is talk of sex work in this book as well. And obviously for me that doesn't make me uncomfortable, but I know some people might look at it and say this puts sex work in a really, really negative light, because I think it does as well. This book kind of reminded me as like a teenager when I started driving. You know, I was always told, don't travel alone as a female on the highway because you never know what's out there. And I never really believed it, but that this is the only part of the book, that actually makes me feel like it's real. The rest of it seems pretty far-fetched. There's also a lot of coincidences in the book. Like, they talk about long-haul truck drivers, and it just so happens that Cassie's father was a long-haul truck driver. And it's like, okay, so she just so happens to find a case that really involves her, and yet it is somehow, in a way, connected to her life. There's a lot of talk about her life and Cody's lives, and I don't necessarily get why it's talked about so much, because I feel like I'm there for the investigative aspect and I'm there for the girls and the killers. But the talks about their lives, I'm just like, I could skip over. So yeah, there were days that I am so glad that I had like a goal written down for at least one chapter, because there were some chapters that I was like, I don't really know that I enjoyed it. The book, honestly, it was a good book, but it's not something I would recommend to someone. If someone was like, hey, do you have a crime novel that I could read? Probably wouldn't pass them this one first. Like, it's good, but I found myself really having a hard time getting through it. Like I've said a few times. I also really, really hated how the book ended. The book ended in a way that made it sound and seem like there should be a sequel. Because like it ended on like sort of like a cliffhanger, but nothing that was solved really led to anything, which was kind of disappointing to me. I literally said to my boyfriend, I have this last chapter to read and then we can play games, but like this chapter had better end the way I want it to, because I'm going to be really upset. And it didn't. And I don't know if that was the author's intent. However, yeah, if it's not, then if it was, then I don't know, like it feels like it needs to have a sequel. The front of this book says it was perfectly paced, with more than a few shockingly unexpected plot twists. I do believe that there were unexpected plot twists, but I don't think it was perfectly paced. So I definitely think that if someone were open to reading this book after they hear what I have to say, then I mean, all the power to you, because I'd love to have someone to talk about it with. But would I gravitate toward, and this might sound really biased, but would I gravitate toward one of his other books? Probably not, just because I know that I didn't enjoy the writing in this one as much as I hoped. That's just my 2 cents. Obviously, if someone recommended one of his books and said, you know, it was really, really fantastic, you should give it a shot, I would, of course. Overall, I think people have to go into this book knowing that there are a lot of things that could trigger you, particularly in the last half of the book. And if you are not able to separate things that could trigger you when you're reading fiction from reality, then please do not pick up this book, because it is not for you. Like I said, there's talks of murder, there's talks of sex work, there's talks of sexual assault. So yeah, if any of those bother you really, really, really badly, please do not pick up this book. It is not worth upsetting you. Honestly, like the back of this book says it was $6 that I paid. Definitely glad that I only paid a little bit, only picked it up for a sale price, because if I had paid full price for it, I would be a little bit upset with myself. But would I recommend this book to people who wanted a crime book? Probably not my first recommendation. However, if someone is like, I have read all of the typical crime books, I need something a little bit newer, sure, why not? I would say this is probably a 6 out of 10.